When the pandemic hit, everything changed.
Number of cases in Georgia are still growing. The governor is ordering all public schools closed.
The schools across Virginia closed for the rest of the year.
Educators now must figure out how to replace face-to-face instruction with online classes.
They were home all the time. They were sitting on a computer, seeing their teachers and their classmates. And it was really hard.
All across the country, students are facing unprecedented challenges.
He came home from school and we were alerted that afternoon that he would not be returning the next day. He had a bunch of things at school and it was just, stay home. We're at a stay-at-home order and we're going to have to wait and see while hospitals catch up.
I saw what it was doing to our kids and what it was doing to the parents, what it was doing to relationships.
It was just full on. We had to be doing something. Children are suffering.
It's especially hard for teenagers and adolescents, just feeling such a change and such a transition in their lives and being isolated and afraid, and that didn't sit right with me.
Right off the bat, I was just like, we're not doing that.
Okay, you can use his Crocs.
Oh, come on, it's not freezing.
Okay, you've got the peas. Here, let Nikki carry the peas.
Somebody put something in the compost. Now it's not.
Does this decompose?
No.
Okay, so it begins there and it ends up here. Which one do you think, which bin has the finished compost in it? And where? That's right. Where is the finished compost? Is it on the top or the bottom?
The bottom.
The bottom. So if we want to make a nice vegetable garden, we probably want to take some of that nice finished compost and bring it with us, right? There's a lot of subjects that I think are important in life that they don't teach in public schools. Home economics concepts is one. Another topic is social skills. I think people think that by being in a school environment, you just automatically learn social skills. I disagree. There are techniques that I didn't learn until much later in life, in my career. Negotiation is one. I'm about to teach them the simplified version of Dale Carnegie's famous How to Win Friends and Influence People. Especially during this time with forced isolation, we are losing the skill to interact with people. We are hiding half of our faces. They don't know about eye contact, the importance of remembering somebody's name, addressing them by their name, how to start a conversation, how to show interest in other people and not only talk about yourself. But at the end of the day, more than his science, more than his math, more than his reading ability, I think those social skills are among the most important skills in life. Why don't they teach that in school?
When we moved to Georgia, before we moved here, we specifically sought out another Waldorf-inspired school. In Georgia, there's only, I think, 2 or 3, and they're very cost prohibitive. The one that we found was not cost prohibitive, but is very far from here, so it was a big hike for us. Yeah, so we moved here October 2019, and then we, after October 2019, she started school. Then there was Thanksgiving break, winter break, and then there was, she got sick, and then she went back to school for a few weeks, and then the pandemic hit. What I think the big deal for us was that in California, we were in a Waldorf-inspired school. She was outside a lot. She was doing a lot of art, a lot of singing. The focus was not on handwriting and memorization of her letters. And we came here, we wanted to continue that. And the school that we did find was a forest school. And so she was outside all the time. And from California to Georgia in the middle of the winter was a big shift for Annalise. So she came from being inside a nice, warm, cozy school and playing outside in nice 60 to 70 degree weather to all of a sudden it's like 30 degrees and raining, and she's outside in a full rain suit. And it was a big transition for her.
I have been researching unschooling and homeschooling for like years, honestly. Mostly on groups on Facebook, and then just doing a lot of researching and reading books and just familiarizing more of myself. It's more of, I think, a mindset change than it is anything else. Just having the paradigm shift to understanding that my parenting and my children is not measured by how many facts they have been able to soak in and how many, subjects they're good at. Like, I just don't feel like that's what we should measure our parenting and how great our children are.
As a pediatric speech therapist anyways, I was involved in development before this. So looking at the way that kids learn and how they learn through play, how they're supposed to learn, it's very different to what actually happens in a traditional school. If kids have a love of learning and if they're not forced into it, they can continue to be lifelong learners. So, my goal with my kids is that they know how to learn and that they love learning and finding information and that they feel confident about their skills. I don't feel like you have to sit in a classroom and check boxes because that's what, the state says you need to learn. For example, my older daughter was in 3rd grade this year, and on the state standards, it's memorize states and capitals. We did not memorize states and capitals. Good question, Livia. Knowing the capitals has never helped me in my life. It's not something that I think is helpful to anybody, but I do think that you should know where you are in the world and what's around you. So, as you can probably see in the background, we've got maps everywhere that are laminated, and every time we read a book, we find it on the map and we write it in on the map, and we have world maps on our wall, and we have state maps, and we have the US map. So my kids know where they are in the world and what's around them and where the different states are, but it's not because we sat down and memorized it. It's because we read books, looked at maps, put it on our timeline, went on trips, mapped it while we were on the trip. So as long as they're familiar with who they are, where they come from, what's around them, different cultures, different parts of the world, that can be taught in so many ways. I have 2 girls, Livia and Hallie Hallie just turned 8 and Livia is 9.
I have 3 children. I have a 10-year-old, a 6-year-old, and a 4-year-old.
Hendrik started at a Montessori school for preschool and kindergarten, and then we transferred him to the local public school, Chesterbrook Elementary. And I wanted him to be in the local school so that he could get to know all of the local kids in our neighborhood.
Before the pandemic, he went to public school. Didn't really enjoy it all that much, but honestly the idea of homeschooling never really crossed our mind.
They were at a nature-based school just down the road from our house, so they were in regular traditional school, but it was more of an outdoor environment.
Yeah, so we moved here October 2019. She started school, then there was Thanksgiving break, winter break. She got sick, and then she went back to school for a few weeks, and then the pandemic hit.
Public school for my oldest was, he didn't like it. He's not very social. He was kind of bullied. He's kind of like a nerdier kid. So he was bullied in school. He wasn't really into it.
Some of the protocols the school had to do during school was that she'd have to wear a mask all day long. She had to sit farther apart with the desk. And also during lunchtime, they had to be separated. Like it was like Annalise, a chair, and then a classmate. And that was the only time they were allowed to take their face mask off. I think the teacher also had plexiglass around her desk. And then when the teachers all got vaccinated, They shut down school and all the kids were expected to do virtual.
We've never really liked how public school was, but it was really the only option that we had.
Being the mother of a, at the time, 7-year-old boy, I didn't get a lot of information about what happened in school. So that was probably my biggest frustration, was that it was a little bit opaque. We were not permitted as parents to just show up and walk in and peek in on the classroom like I could at the Montessori school. So I just accepted that, and the teachers gave us a high-level idea of topics they were going to cover, but I never felt like I really knew what was going on.
Well, after my own health issues with wearing masks and research on the safety of wearing masks prior to the pandemic research, I decided that it was not a safe bet for my 2 children, who both of them have autoimmune, and the fact that living in a world where people's faces are covered when there's no real risk to the children is the benefit risks are just off balance, and there's a great risk to seeing a world full of people in masks and fear.
Going into public school for the fall, I thought she was going to be able to go into public school. It'd actually be an in-person school, but we came to find out that it was going to be virtual. We set her up in our playroom, and within 10 minutes, I knew it wasn't going to work.
We got sent home and started doing virtual schooling, and I couldn't concentrate on it because I don't like staring at screens for 8 hours a day, and it hurts my eyes. They're already not the best. We ended up down here at like 11 o'clock at night having to catch me up on schoolwork because I wouldn't do it on the computer.
I would sit with them because virtual learning was hard to navigate between multiple screens and multiple websites and Zoom and worksheets and different apps they had to use. So it took a lot of work to sit with them for each of the classes and make sure that they could navigate it. And they didn't like it. Livia ended up hiding under the table most of the time and refusing to put the sound on, and it would take double the amount of time just to get the information across as it would in the classroom. So it was really frustrating. It was hard.
And I calculated it, and it was something like 6 total hours in front of a Zoom all day. I can't even do that, let alone my son.
My daughter generally spends about 80 to 90% of her day outside, in the woods, in her treehouse, in the creek. And to all of a sudden tell her to sit down and be in front of a computer just didn't seem right or fair to her or to our family.
There was really no help system, and everything was disorganized, and nobody really knew what they were doing.
No consistency at all. He was in 6th grade, so he had 7 different teachers. And this teacher was doing it this way, this teacher was doing it that way. You couldn't get a hold of anybody. You would email an assignment to one teacher and it would never get there.
We only lasted about 2 weeks into virtual school when we decided it was not going to work for us. The kids weren't happy, they weren't learning anything that way.
You contact the English teacher and they'd say, oh yeah, don't worry about it, send it in 2 weeks late, no problem. You send it in as soon as it gets done and it would be a 0. You try to contact counselors and you would just never hear back from them. Or you would get a, I'm away from my desk, I'll be back on the 25th kind of email. There was no help. Another teacher would say, oh, click this link and all the assignments will pop up. It was a dead link. There was nothing. And I have to work, my husband has to work. So you've got a 6th grader that's desperately trying to get through school, no help.
Before the school year started, I went up to her and I said in these exact words, if y'all were to force me into virtual schooling, I would not do it and I would fail.
And just like that. No disrespect, no screaming, no temper tantrum. He just said, guess what? You try to make me do virtual school next year, I'll just not do it. You don't make Jakey do anything. There was no other choice.
So it took 45 minutes for me to say to my husband, we cannot do this.
And so that's when it became clear to me that no matter what, I had to find a way to homeschool my son. The decision to pull him out was not immediate. I think it happened, it was in the summer. What they first did was Fairfax County asked us to vote for one of two options. I think one option was to go in person 4 days a week, and the other one was to stay distant, remote learning. And we opted to go in person because, again, for me, the in-person interaction was incredibly important. And then I think it was late July that the school announced, you know what, we're actually not doing anything in person, everything is going to be distance learning.
And she ended up going to public school starting March 1st. And we pulled her out, I think, 4 or 5 weeks ago. We decided to pull her out because her entire being completely shifted.
And at first I thought, I can't homeschool. I've got a full-time job. I've got to get dinner on the table. I do some volunteer work for a farm that's kind of demanding. I have my artwork. I suppose I could put that on hold, but I have a busy life and I can't homeschool.
The pandemic definitely pushed us into homeschooling and making that decision, but the decision wasn't out of nowhere. Apparently, I've been told that I've talked about this in the past and without really realizing it's something I wanted to do.
I was afraid of homeschooling, and the pandemic gave me the push that I needed to just do it. And it's been the greatest decision, and it's been the greatest move.
My husband and I both work. We both work a lot of long hours, and at the time he was working every other weekend. And we knew that it was going to be a sacrifice, some long nights, giving up weekends and such. But we decided that it was the best thing for Jacob.
When I brought it up with my work that I thought I might have to step down, maybe go to part-time, they said, look, everybody's struggling right now. We may not be moms, but we get it. I happen to be the only female in my company. But they were very understanding, and they said, look, first, take a breather, take a couple of weeks, think about it, see how things go, and then let's reconvene and see if you still want to step back or you think you can do it. And, in those 2 weeks, somehow I figured it out.
When the pandemic started and the kids were sent home, the schools were closed down, we initially just jumped into, okay, this is our chance to recreate our lives. This is our chance to, do what we've always wanted to do what I've always wanted to do as a parent and as a mother, which was, giving my kids the freedom to construct their own lives, I guess.
Yeah, there's a lot of resources here in our area. There's more homeschooling families than I ever imagined.
I think as things open back up, I keep hearing about these things called homeschool co-ops. I still don't exactly understand what they are, except that they are these opportunities, I think similar to how we have summer camps, but these are during the school year, different kinds of groups that get together and collectively teach children certain topics that I might not be an expert in.
We're a homeschool cooperative who use the Agile Learning Center tools. And that consists mainly, we have a large whiteboard, very large whiteboard, and sticky notes. And our kids put offerings on the sticky notes, things that they're interested in doing. It can be something they want to top-down teach to other children. It can be something they're just interested in doing alongside of other people. It can be something that they've wanted to do for a long time, but they're not able to do at their own home. So we have anything from a simple drawing class to science experiments or a barefoot hike, just all kinds of a variety of things. We really cover the social, emotional, physical aspect of what kids and all humans need, I believe.
I am currently a play worker at 2 different homeschool programs, I am a director who started a homeschool program during the pandemic to give a place for kids to go and be free and socialize. I call myself a play worker. I guess it's another word for a teacher if you wanted to use a mainstream rule, but instead of teaching any specific thing, I tend to allow the child to play and learn through play and learn in the presence of other people, and that's kind of what I see as education. So at the beginning of the pandemic, I was a high school teacher at Amplify Homeschool Co-op, and the pandemic rolled in. We kind of all decided to shut it down and stay at home for a little while. There were no homeschool programs at that time. Karate shut down, drama had shut down, there was nothing to do.
I had just put out some advertisements on different homeschool groups saying, hey, we're wanting to gather, and luckily we found so many like-minded individuals and families, and we were able to kind of have a base group of families who were interested in doing something more. I was a pre-K teacher at our program, and all of us were heavily involved, loved it. We loved our group and our school together. I also had a new baby. My baby was 5 months old. My youngest child was 5 months old when it all started. So I was in no position to be starting a group of my own, but I felt extremely compelled to do so. And I wanted a place for children to be able to see other children's faces, and for children and adults to be able to be together comfortably. I did have fear also surrounding coronavirus, and I had come out of that pretty quickly from just witnessing what was happening socially, really. So I moved out of my personal fear, and I immediately just needed to be brave and be brave for other people and bring the other brave people together.
We talk about how we make slime, we play, we give them the ability to do what they want, and we trust that just because we are in the presence of other humans, we are naturally learning from those humans and their desires and their wants. And it's a beautiful process. I've seen children start 12 weeks ago when we started. We had a child who was very aggressive with nature, with sticks and rocks, and was very aggressive with other children. And he is the most gentle, kind child now after 12 weeks being out in nature and being able to have freedom and not to have any expectations and not to have to live up to what his story was. His story was a boy and hard and playful, and I've just watched that dissipate over 12 weeks.
The word coronavirus, pandemic, masks, all of those trigger words, they do not exist here. They don't. We don't discuss it. The kids don't discuss it. It's not a rule. It just doesn't come up. We don't live that life. We just want to come here and be free and happy and enjoy nature and reap the benefits of being together in nature in a beautiful setting, and let these kids take the lead.
So when we first started, I really tried to replicate school at home, which is not what we do anymore. But at the beginning, I tried to make sure that we got every subject in every day, and we sat down and the kids were listening, and I was providing the information that I wanted them to soak up. And as we went through the year and I discovered more about different techniques and methods, we kind of fell into a more relaxed groove where there's certain things that I like them to get done every day.
It's hard to get out of this traditional school mindset, which is, there's a starting bell and there's an end time and you have to be learning in that window. I started to move toward it doesn't have to be a daily schedule. It doesn't even have to be only during weekdays. That it's really, homeschooling it's a way of life. It's a way of incorporating learning into everything we do. And let's see, it's already decomposed, but do you see all these wood chips around?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then sometimes we put some of the wood chips in there, and then the bigger ones we burn in the fire pit over there. So everything is used, nothing is taken off our property. Yeah, try to get some from the bottom. You can either use the shovel or your hands. And notice how black and nice it is. And smell it. Smell it. And tell me if it smells like you expect.
If he's in the mood for math this day and reading this day, that's fine. As long as by Friday, those assignments are completed. Like he has 100 math questions to do a week. If he decides to do 20 each day, I'm fine with that. If he wants to knock out 60 and 40, I'm fine.
We come downstairs and we meditate together, we pray together, we journal together. My daughter is in charge of breakfast, so she makes our breakfast. And then we eat and we talk and we laugh and we play. And sometimes we do workbooks, because we do have workbooks. Those are mostly for the days where, I feel like I'm insufficient as a parent. Not that I, really feel like we need to do the workbooks, but, sometimes I do get stuck in measuring myself against, the world's and society's expectations of what I should be doing as a mother.
Since the lockdown, I've been stuck in my house, and since I've been doing homeschooling, I've already liked cooking, but then I got a lot more into it and getting better at it. I eventually started making my own spices, and right now I'm learning how to cook meats, and I'm also doing martial arts, because I had a lot of stress because of lockdown, and that gave me a way to relieve some of that.
I am not the type of person that buys a curriculum online. They're very expensive and they're very strict, and they tell you this is what you should say, and that's not me and that's not my daughter or my husband. And so what we've decided to do is make it fun. We want her to have fun, we want her to play, and we want her to be a kid. So we do think it's important to focus on her math and her reading and her writing. And she absolutely loves social studies, she loves science, she loves playing with other kids. So I don't sit there and say, we have to do 1 hour of math, we have to do 1 hour of English, 1 hour of reading.
So I'd come home at night, and usually over dinner I'd say, okay, show me what you accomplished today. And he would have this, this, and this done, and then he'd say, but I was really not understanding the science. So while we were eating dinner, we'd look at his science, and it ended up usually being a conversation at the table. Sometimes it's politics, sometimes it's science, sometimes it's social studies. Yeah, you never knew what it was going to be, but it ended up almost being a whole extra lesson while we were eating.
I found that the more relaxed I can be about what I want them to learn and just sort of put the information around us in a more casual way, they naturally tend to gravitate towards it. So if I leave certain books out on a certain topic, that are age appropriate, they'll start to flip through it themselves and read to each other, or come over to me with something interesting that they've read, and then we can have a discussion about it.
One of my frustrations with the public school was that, I guess a long time ago, they decided home economics was not important, or, for whatever reason, that's not what we want to teach kids. And yet I see all around me a crisis of health and happiness. I see people who are not eating healthy, they're not living healthy, they're on medication to try to achieve happiness. And so part of homeschooling for me is teaching about life and how to live a healthy life. And so that is understanding the cycle of things, understanding how our food grows, the plant and the animal foods, and how we are nourished by consuming them, and then how they go back into the soil just like we do when we die. And so composting, fermenting, baking bread from scratch.
I've been learning about things that interested me a lot more, and it's helped me learn more and built my knowledge, and I've learned about things that public school doesn't teach.
So I have a couple things that are on my must list. You know, we do math every day, we do reading every day, and we do some sort of writing every day. And that can take under an hour to do all of that. So I feel like as long as we're keeping up with those things, if they're fluent and happy readers, if they can do math at their own pace and just keep learning and progressing, I'm not as concerned about keeping up with what they're doing in school, as long as I feel like my children are getting a really good education. I've really learned that education is very different to schooling. You know, you can be schooled, but it doesn't mean you're educated, and vice versa.
It's hard at first, but then once you get into like a rhythm, it gets easier over time, and then you can kind of adjust how you're doing things. Like a month ago, we started planning my 8th grade school year, and we were discussing what would be the best for my schedule. We ended up deciding on something that we both agree with.
Hendrix is so much happier. I mean, his bad mood days, I think they've dropped by 2/3. I mean, yeah, there's always days that kids are not in the mood, but it used to be Monday dumb day, he would call it. And now he still jokingly says it, but he giggles and he's smiling and he's singing as he says it. So it's more like this routine of Monday dumb day, but he loves Mondays now. But he loves weekends and he loves every day.
Well, academically, there's been a huge change, because what would take them weeks and weeks to learn before, we can learn it in a matter of a couple of days or a few minutes together.
Okay, good boy.
So there are a lot of families that feel the way that I feel about giving their children a normal experience of life without fear, and they appreciate the opportunity to be living in a world where we're living. We're making decisions for our children to step outside of the box and to be looked at as people who are being irresponsible in order to give our kids a normal life without an abundance of fear. And that's what there's nothing to be scared of for them.
I think our driving force as a parent is my child going to do well academically? If they're not good children, you know? And I think that's totally wrong and totally backwards, and I just don't feel like we should ever, place that type of pressure on a child, because academics is literally one piece of a million other aspects of a child. And I've learned to see my child for who they are as opposed to what kind of grades they make.
When you're at public school, she would sit there quietly and obediently and listen to the teacher talk. She had very limited time talking to her friends in school. She would come home and tell me that the teacher would turn on a show in the cafeteria. So the one time that they get to take their mask off and sit and do whatever they want to do with their friends as they eat their lunch and talk about whatever, they stopped it by putting on a show. Or they have 20 minutes outside, because here in Georgia they have limited playground time. So I feel like her socialization, there's none of that in public school. I didn't get that from the stories she would tell me. But with homeschool, the socialization, we are busy every single day.
So I was curious if Hendrix really is enjoying homeschooling or if he's just humoring me. So on April Fool's, I played a little trick and I said to him, Hendrix, I got a new job and I'm gonna make so much more money, but I'm gonna be a lot busier and I can't homeschool you anymore, so I enrolled you for school next year. And his face just immediately, I could see the shock and the sadness, and my heart leapt, and that's when I knew he's really a lot happier homeschooling.
As far as the future goes, I think that I want to allow my children to do whatever they want to do. If that includes them going to high school or middle school or whatever, if that's what they want to do, they're more than free to choose that. And I don't push it on them. I don't push college on them. I don't push anything on them. I don't think that college is nearly the end-all be-all that society has made it out to be. I don't believe college is necessary, but I know that if my kids want to go to college, I know that when the time comes, they will be the type of learners that if they want to go to college, they can grasp whatever it is that they need to go to college.
Everybody asks me, what are my plans now that schools are opening back up? And I really don't see any benefit at this point to sending him back. I think we have a pretty good arrangement as it is. So for the time being, I don't have any plans to send him back to elementary school. Thinking ahead to middle school, high school, I really don't know.
I don't think that once you've seen that you're going to be able to unsee a lot of the reasons that we've stepped away. I think that random COVID testing in school of children is a good reason for parents not to send their children back to public education right now. I think a lot of parents are fearful of vaccinations being given in schools without permission. And I think that the mask issue and the social distancing is still a huge deterrent for parents. Maybe fitting into that box isn't for the best.
We're definitely going to continue this. It's been a great year for us. It really, just making the choice to homeschool and remove ourselves from the chaos of the past year. You know, we didn't have to make those hard decisions about, do we send them back? Do we keep them home virtual? Do they have to wear a mask all day? Do they have to, you know, be 6 feet apart from friends and not able to touch and hug their friends?
A lot of families do worry about what will happen when their children are 18. What will happen when their children turn 18? Where will they go from their very eclectic, carefree homeschool lives into the real world? And I would say to that we are living in the real world at all times. Children are born living their lives that they're meant to live in the real world.
My kids will be more ready for the real world than the kids that are at school all day, not living in the real world. My kids live in the real world. They know how to clean, they know how to cook. They are very independent, very self-sufficient. Even the difference between after the pandemic and the lockdowns came is that I was forced to be in a space where I was with my children 24/7. And it was the most beautiful space that I've ever been in. We are learning that we have the power to create life however we see fit. And I think I didn't have that before. Watching everything in life as we know it kind of just crumble, you know, and it was like a new start for us. It was like, you know, everything that we've known is no longer there, it's gone. So we have a fresh start, and what are we gonna make out of it? And every day we're learning what it means to be true to ourselves, and we're learning what it means to be fulfilled and to be in a life that we enjoy, because what else are we here for, you know? Before the pandemic, I didn't really understand that I had the choice and the freedom to create life as I wanted it to. And I'm learning that more and more. It's unfolding more and more every day as the days go by.
What do you do all day?
Play. Play. Yeah, play. I was reading my book. We go to the creek. Investigators. The little gators invest.
What's it like here? Do you have fun?
It's like the definition of fun.
What do you guys do down at the creek?
Oh, we go swimming and we play and run. And there's snakes. We see turtles everywhere. Dance party. I learned how to sew and connect. I sewed a little green t-shirt for my beanie. So I told my mom, because I make smoothies every day, I told my mom not to bring it, and she did. It was a blender. And then it got broke.
What do you guys like to talk about?
Well, on summer, it's my birthday.
But how did that make you guys feel?
Bored.
Bored and